So, thank you. Good evening. Hi, my name is Marilyn Omifunke Torres, and I'm faculty for the Storytelling Institute. It is such a joy and pleasure to have you here this evening with us. We welcome you to Stew and Stories. The Storytelling Institute has been sponsoring and supporting the Stew and Stories for several years. And of course, it has always been live with stew and bread and wonderful tellers that come to join us. And we, of course, have made the adjustment. COVID-19 world. And yet we still believe that you can come and join us and partake, even if it's at a metaphorical level, the stew and stories that we will share with you tonight. And so I'd like to introduce our first teller. We are introducing Choogie, who will be sharing with you, Kingfisher, stories as they are part of his traditions and ancestries. He's a powwow singer, a gourd dancer, a musician, and is nationally known for all the cultural stories that he has told through powwow trails and so much more. So let us welcome Choogie as our traditional teller of the Cherokee Nation. Thank you.
Good evening to everyone. My name is Choogie Kingfisher, and I come to you from Tahlequah, Oklahoma. Tonight, recording out of my brother-in-law's house here in Kenwood, Oklahoma, way out in the middle of nowhere. But having a wonderful time this evening, and it's just a pleasure to be a part of this program. I've heard about it a few years ago, and what a wonderful, wonderful opportunity it is to be asked to be a part of this. Of course, it would have been nice to be there in Arizona, but it's still nice to be here at home and still be able to see and hear everyone out there in Indian country. And a little background on myself. I'm a full-blood Kituwa Cherokee. I was raised in our traditional ways, and a lot of people say, well, where did you get your stories from? My stories come from my families, from my grannies and my grandpas and my aunties and my uncles, and even those that would just search me out to give me a story. And so I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for that 30 some odd years that I've been able to travel this trail and share what's been given to me. I've always said that stories are living things, that in order for them to live, that we must tell them. And so tonight I want to share a few stories with you. I don't know exactly how the program's going to go, but they're turning me loose, so I'm going to take off. The story starts out something like this. It says that a long time ago, when this earth was new, there were only animals here. And these animals, they could walk and talk, and they spoke the Cherokee language. That is why we know these stories, is because the animals told us. They said, one of these days when we learn to listen again, the animals, they will tell us more stories. But until then, this was one that was told of how Rabbit got his long ears and long legs. One day, as Unethanna, the creator, was walking around his home in the sky, he looked down upon this new earth and he began to smile. You see, as he began to look around, he noticed that everyone was being nice to each other. And this made his heart happy. And he said, this is how my children are supposed to be. He said, they're being so nice that I want to give them a wish. That whatever they should want, I will grant that wish. No matter how crazy, how absurd it is. Today, things are going to change. Those things that were tall might be short today. Those things that were short might be tall. Those things that are thin might be big. And those things that are big might be thin. Those things that are beautiful might become even more beautiful. As Creator came down out of his home in the sky, he sat down among his children, and everyone gathered around. They could see that there was something exciting that Creator wanted to tell them. He said, my children, I've been watching you from my home in the sky, and I've noticed that each and every one of you have been nice to each other. So I want to give you one wish. Whatever you should wish for, I will grant that wish. All the animals, they were so happy as all the wishes began to form in their minds, and Creator said, wait, Those of you that want to wish, line up on this side. And so they all begin to line up, and one after another, they came from the Creator and they made their wish. Creator wanted them to remember. And so every time they would make their wish, he would reach down and poof, and out of the smoke, their wish would come true. Animal after animal continued to come. There came Doxy, the turtle. Even back then, he was very slow. He came to Creator. He said, Unethana, I want to be able to travel and see my whole family. He said, as it is now, I start my travels and I get so tired, I simply turn around and come back home. Creator said, that is quite a problem. Everyone should be able to see their family. So I will help you. Close your eyes. And so Doxy, he closed his eyes, and Creator reached down and poof, out of smoke, gave him a shell on his back. So that now whenever Turtle goes somewhere and he grows weary, he simply crawls up into his shell, rests for a while, and then continues on his journey. Animal after animal continued to come, and soon there came Yona the bear. Now, many people picked on Yona back in the day because he was very small and timid. And as he came up, he said, nothing. I just want people to leave me alone. And he began to cry. Creator looked down and said, Yona, what is it specifically that you want? And Yona said, nothing. I just want people to leave me alone. Creator said, I believe I can help with that. And he said, close your eyes. And so the bear, he stood there and he closed his eyes. And Creator reached down and poof, out of the smoke. Everyone waited to see what was going to happen. And then all of a sudden, out of that smoke stood this big old bear. Now this bear, he was so gigantic, everyone became frightened of him and they wondered what was going to happen. And all of a sudden, the bear, he began to smile. And when he began to smile, everyone began to smile with him. And the bear went, row, and everyone took off running in all different directions. The bear stood there. He said, yeah, I like this. And he disappeared off into the forest. And today, bear is one of the biggest creatures Creator has ever made. Animal after animal continued to come, and soon there came G-Stu, the trickster rabbit. Now, G-Stu, you will find him in a lot of stories east of the Mississippi. He's very, very tricky, but in this time, he was very much different. You see, back then he had short ears, short front and back legs, and a long bushy tail. As he came up, he said, Nethana, I've got 2 wishes if that's all right with you. Creator shook his head. He said, Rabbit, I've been given 1 wish. Why should I give you 2? He said, well, when we're eating or we're drinking water and someone sneaks up behind us to eat us, we can't hear them till they're right there because we got these little bitty short ears. And then when we try to run away, they scoop us up and they eat us for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. If you don't help us, we're going to disappear before the humans get here. Oh, that was right. Creator, he was very concerned about that. And he thought to himself, well, maybe just this once, I can give 2 wishes. All right, Rabbit, I will give you your 2 wishes, but I can't poof you like I do everybody else. Those of you that are waiting on wishes, turn around and look that way. Those of you that had received wishes, turn around and look that way. I don't want anyone to see what I'm going to do to the rabbit. So everyone turned around. He picked the rabbit up. He said, Rabbit, are you ready? Rabbit said, yes. And he reached down, he grabbed the ears, and he began to stretch and he began to pull. Oh, they came stretching out, and the rabbit began to cry out, "Ay-yo, ay-yo!" And the creator put him down, and the rabbit said, hey, I like these. I can hear. I know who's down there, and I know who's talking. Can I go get onto them, please?" "No, rabbit, come here." "Okay." And as the rabbit was walking back, he noticed something was missing. He looked to one side and he looked to the other. He spun all the way around in a circle, but he couldn't find what he was looking for, and that was his tail. The rabbit stood there and he looked at the creator and said, "Excuse me, sir, but I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I think you lost something." Creator, he began to chuckle just a little bit. He said, "Gee, Stu, what did I lose? I think you lost my tail. Look behind you." When Rabbit turned around, he saw to his amazement a cute little cotton tail. You see, when Creator pulled those ears out, that big old long bushy tail, shoop, the only piece that was left was the tip of that tail. Oh, Rabbit, he was very proud of that. He said, "Are you going to stretch my legs now? Are you going to stretch my legs?" "I will stretch your legs." He reached down to pick up the rabbit and made sure no one was looking. Grabbed those back legs and began to stretch and begin to pull. And as he was doing that, the rabbit began to scream and yell once more. Down here, there was the owl. And the owl, he couldn't stand not knowing what was going on behind him. He was trying to figure out some way to obey the Creator, yet see what was going on. He was trying so hard. And finally, he got his neck to pop and twist and turn until he was able to look all the way around without turning his entire body. He saw what was going on. He saw the legs being stretched out. His eyes got real big. He said, "Oh my goodness, did you see that?" But no one else looked. The Creator put the rabbit down. He said, "Because the owl disobeyed me, his eyes will always stay big like that as a reminder." The Creator started to go into the heavens. And the rabbit sat there. Said, "Unethona, what about my front legs?" Creator stopped and he looked out across his children. He said, "When everyone in this world can learn to be nice to each other again, I will come and I will stretch your front legs." The next time you see a rabbit somewhere out in the park, in the yard, be very quiet, be very still, and watch. And that rabbit will stop. That rabbit will turn its head just the slightest little bit to look at you. And if you learn to listen with your heart as well as with your ears, you can hear that rabbit say, "Be nice to everyone around you, so that way Creator can come and stretch my front legs." At least that's the story that was told to me. Thank you, guys.
Well, yes, thank you so much, Choogie. What a beautiful story and how appropriate for these times. So we are so thankful for your visit all the way from Oklahoma. You continue to tell stories, continue to bring your wisdom. It's a story I promise you I will never forget, as well as all of our audience who are listening in right now.
Thank you very much.
Asheo. Modupwe. Well, with that being said, let's get prepared to listen to our next teller. Stories come from so many places. They come from our elders, and sometimes they come deep, deep from our families who tell them to us over and over again. It is our joy and our pleasure to introduce you to Ken Duncan, who will share with you stories right here as a native from Mesa, Arizona of the Apache Nation, as a dancer and a teller of stories. Welcome, Ken, for this evening on Stew and Stories.
Thank you, Ahia. Kuna kwana yagi niko, diko, donina. Nagunde gun say he. The young sheet na he, Chenevku. Wichilas authentic. Naguni casco. Kura sultan, hit all, sabidal, ah. Zego. Smashel and Ligo, Dika, the one which is authentic. I just said in my native Apache language that all these gifts I received from the old ones that raised me, my grandparents, my step-grandfather, my grandmother. In the winter times, they would gather us, and having no TV or anything else, being raised by the old folks, just having the bare necessities. My sister, my two brothers, and I were raised by these old people, and we learned the ways of our Apache people. And we were taught Apache, which is our first language. And so in these stories, we learn all these lessons on how to be and how to act. Just like the other teller just said, it teaches us moral values and how to behave and how we should act as a community, as individuals. My step-grandfather was a medicine man, and he told a lot of stories about creation. And stories that I'll share with you today, has to do with stories about animals, just similar to what the other storyteller just shared. But he also shared with me a lot of different, very in-depth stories. Our migration stories, our origin stories coming from the headwaters of Oak Creek in a beautiful country called Sedona. But also, he told us stories about our origin from long, long ago. How Apaches came from the stars, how we were brought here by an advanced race that we were a part of. But we came humbled as the indigenous ones here to learn the ways of how to harvest all of the gifts from Mother Earth. And in time, people were going to come and they were going to be more technologically involved, and they were going to forget their spirituality and their close tie to nature. And we were the ones that were going to reteach them all these things that their ancestors had utilized at the beginning of their walk in this world. And so my grandfather told me that we used to come a long time ago from a planet on the other side of Orion's belt. And so my grandmother would take us outside in the wintertime, and she would point up in the sky and say, "See those stars there? We come from behind those stars. Someday our ancestors will come back and get us and take us home." But those are other stories. And so I'm very happy to be here. I do some of these Zoom programs. So I had made myself a sign in our front room here, which also doubles as our office. And I had made this little sign, Zoom Studio One, but my wife pulled it off just before we aired. So anyway, this is my studio, and I'm really happy to be here. My name is Ken Duncan. I'm an Apache from here. I'm a flute player. I learned how to play the flute out of necessity too. My father bought an Apache river cane flute from the trading post where he worked, Weech's trading post. And we used to go up and gather acorn up in the mountains, and the drive was a long ways. One day he said, "Mess around with this and see what you can do." And he handed me a flute, and I would play around with that flute as I rode in the back of the truck with my grandmother, my aunt, my sister, my two brothers, and I eventually learned how to play the flute. And so the Apaches play a unique flute. It's made out of river cane, as opposed to the wooden flutes that most other people play. But the stories also are tied into the native flute. So I'm going to go ahead and share with you a story. This ties in with what we're going through right now, that we need to rely on prayer, inner strength, hope, and the belief that things will get better, that we have power over even the darkest things. So I'm going to share with you a story at this time. I have my little background music here that I always play. My son, Tony, is my favorite flute player, and so I always play his music. So he's going to be my background music. For the longest time, the Apache people were the only ones that called all of the high places where the elk ran, where all of the turkey trotted, where there were pine trees that only belonged to the Apache people. Our cousins, the Navajo, refer to us as the mountain people because we all lived only in the mountains. But as time passed, there were other people that began to make roads into the mountains. People with yellow hair, red hair, curly hair, light skin hair, and even darker skin. And so all of these different people became people that were newcomers into our lands. And so as they arrived, they brought with them new things that Apaches had never seen before. They brought with them new tools, new animals, cows, goat, sheep, chickens, horses, these things that we had never seen before. And also, along with them, they brought diseases that we knew nothing of. And so these people began to go among the Apache villages. But in time, they brought with them a great disease called smallpox. And village upon village of Apaches began to get devastated and wiped out by this disease. Medicine men and medicine women everywhere tried to conquer this disease that was wiping out the Apache people in the mountains. All of the medicine people failed, and there were people that were stricken with this disease. Sores covered their bodies, and they began to die off. One day, they went to the one and only remaining medicine man, high up in the mountain. In the highest mountain, he lived right at the edge of the timberline. And that old man lived in a cabin, and he prayed every morning to the sunrise. As he was praying, he slowly turned around, and he noticed behind him, from the trees, were emerging hundreds and hundreds of Apaches, men, women, children of all ages. One of them stepped forward and said, "Old man, you're the only medicine man that is left that we have yet to call on to conquer this disease that covers our faces and our arms with sores. Please help us. You are the wisest, the oldest of all the medicine people. All the rest have failed." The old man took a deep breath. He said, "I've heard about this, and I am the one that taught the ones that failed their medicine. What am I to do? What I will do, they have already done. I'm sorry, but this disease is too strong. I cannot help you. But continue praying, and maybe the Creator will hear you anyway." But the people asked him 4 times. Second time he refused. The second time, third time. And then finally the 4th request, the old man bowed his head. By tradition, if anyone from our people is to ask us 4 times, I must do my best. He said, "Come back in 5 days. On the 5th morning, come here again where you are, and hopefully I will have an answer." And so the old man said, "I will now go walk up into the mountains, and I will go and fast. I will do my best, and I will fast for all of you." And so the old man, he went and he fasted for the people. And so as he was fasting, he felt a very good sign. And so he was told that he should take the people to a very special place in the mountain. And so the old man came back down. And that morning when he arrived back at his cabin, he looked down at the timberline, and there gathered right on the very edge of the pine forest were the people that were infected. They all rose and started chattering. "There he is," they said. "He will help us. Look." The old man walked up. He stood on a rock, and he said, "All of you have such great faith. The Creator has heard you. While I was fasting, he told me that you will all be saved because of your faith, not by my prayers or what the Creator is going to do, but because of what you have within your spirit, in your heart. He is forced to listen to your prayers. Come, follow me. I need to take you here. Come. And so the old man walked up the trail around his cabin, and he went further and further up the mountain. And the line of people slowly followed him until finally, high up the mountain, they came to where there was a little waterfall from the melting snows from the highest peak in the land. And they made a little stream, and it gathered in a wide pool. He said, "Here is the purest water, not touched by anyone. I was told that we are to pray here on this side of the bank. Pour your heart out to the Creator and ask to be healed. And then step into the water and slowly bathe yourselves. And then when you are on the other side, if you have the faith, you will come out clean of any sores. You will be healed of this great disease." So all the people fell down on their knees and they prayed and prayed to the Creator. They said, "We come pitiful. We pray and ask and we plead with mercy. Please help us, Creator," they said in Apache. One by one, they followed the old man. The old man said, "This way," and he splashed water on himself. And he made it to the other side of the bank, and he stood there. "Now, all of you come through." One by one, they started going in there until almost all of them were in the water. And as they were praying to the Creator, standing there with their arms raised to the sky, not far from the top of the mountain, the highest mountain in the land, a little boy said, "Something swam against my body. Something brushed my back." And a woman said, "Something swam against my arm." "Me too," they said. People said, Something's bumping into my legs." And then somebody said, "There's a fish. There's another fish there." And the old man says, "There are no fish here. I come to pray here all the time. It is too high. The water comes from the melting snow and it collects here. I have never seen fish in this pond." "But look," said the people. The old man looked in the water, and there in the water below the surface, brushing against the people praying, were schools of fish that he had never seen before. They were small little fish, golden yellow, the color of the sacred cattail pollen that the Apache use to pray and ask for help, for guidance. "They are the color of our sacred pollen. Look," said the people. "And look, when they turn, they shimmer the colors of the rainbow." Remember, we are told that after a rain, all of the trees and brush and the rocks and the dirt has been cleansed of dust. The rainbow will appear. Look, they have rainbows dancing on either side of their bodies. And every time the fish brushed against a person covered with smallpox, the spots from their faces and their arms and their chests, they vanished. But then they noticed that on the backs of these golden yellow fish with the rainbows dancing on the sides, brown sores were appearing on their bodies. "Look," they said, "these fish, the golden yellow ones, they are taking upon themselves the sickness called smallpox. They are being covered with sores." And as they swam again and again, the rest of the people came into the water and they stood there praying, crying. And the fish came to them and rubbed against them. And every time the fish swam against them, sores vanished from their faces, arms, and necks. All the people cried. They saw a miracle happening before them. The Creator had sent yellow golden fish to save the people, the Apache, the mountain people. As they came out to the other side, They all fell on their knees and they cried and cried and thanked the Creator. Ahia, kegunan ahia, kujose gendiko kujose, ahia, kanajun kuchapala. He said, thank you for having mercy on us. Thank you, you have power over everything. Thank you for sending these special fish, said the people. The old man stood there as surprised as the people. He was never told by the Creator that he was going to send these special fish to cleanse the ones that came in faith. That fish is only native to Arizona. That fish, the little golden yellow fish, the ones with the rainbows dancing on their sides, covered with brown spots, are only found in one place. Nowhere else in all of Mother Earth, nowhere in any of the oceans, the seas, the brooks, the streams, the ponds, the lakes, nowhere else can these little golden fish be found except in the land of the Apache, in a place called the White Mountains. In those few chosen streams do these little fish still swim to this very day. We call this fish the Apache trout, the only native trout of Arizona. How long ago the Creator sent these special fish people to come and save the Apache from the disease called smallpox. And because of their faith, they were saved. Diko, Dunina, it was told to me long ago when I was a boy in this way. Ahia. Thank you.
Well, Ken, thank you so much for such a beautiful story. The story that is rooted in the land and rooted in the people and rooted in these times. A story to remind us to pray. A story to remind us to ask Creator to continue to guide us and help us in these most powerful times. Thank you so much for the gift that you bring, for the work that you do, and for the elders and the ancestral wisdom that moves through you. Ashe Nebele Saludomare. Thank you. Will you be telling us another story? Or beautiful.
Yeah. Do I have some more time?
Yes, you do.
Okay. Since that was kind of a sad one, I'm going to tell us a happy one. A long time ago, way up in the mountains, there was a village of people. As they were getting ready to finish their supper, someone noticed that to the east, from the mountains came rising a beautiful golden yellow moon, so full that it was so bright. And everyone said, look, it's the time of the full moon. Everybody put your best regalia on. Get your instruments, your rattles, your drums. Get all of your shakers, everybody. And so everybody went back to their homes to put their finest traditional clothing on, and also to get their instruments, their drums, their rattles. And everyone came making their way to the central lodge. A large, round central lodge, huge. It was the meeting place where everyone gathered for potlucks and for special ceremonies. All these other people were living in small homes all around this central lodge. And so they all were streaming in there, and all of a sudden everyone came, and the chief says, I'm so happy everyone is here. I want everyone to dance really hard. Singers sing really loud. Drummers keep perfect time. Women, thank you for bringing the beautiful food, the delicious food, and thank you to the men for bringing the firewood to cook all this food. Thank you. I'm so proud of my village, said the chief. But this village was not any village. It was a village made up of dogs. These dogs were ready to dance. Brown ones Black ones, shaggy ones, short-haired ones. Dogs had real curly tails, long, heavy tails, long ears, short, pointy ears. All these dogs were gathering in. All the drumming dogs were in the middle, the ones with the shakers next to them, and everyone was getting ready to dance. And they started dancing and dancing. Beautiful beating of the drum. So pretty. They started making a circle. They were doing the round dance. They made 2 or 3 circles, and they were all dancing in a huge circular lodge. They were having a really good time. And someone said, I can hardly wait to eat that delicious smelling food over there. And the chief says, hurry, keep dancing if you want to eat. We have to keep dancing. We have to finish the ceremony now. We have to sing so many songs. So everybody started dancing again, going around and around in a circle, around the outer wall. All of a sudden, as they were dancing faster and faster, somewhere in the circle over there, someone said, "Arr, arr, 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 arr." The chief goes, what is that? And then somebody went, "Arr, arr, arr, arr," over on this side. And then 2 dogs got into a fight. The chief said, stop. Why are you fighting? Beautiful singing, precise drumming. Why are you waiting for us to eat the food by stopping this dance? And the female dog would listen. He stepped on my tail and crunched it. Oh, it hurt it. And this other one, female dog, said, I was dancing really good, but somebody almost pulled my tail off. And those 2 male dogs, he was getting in my way with his tail, and I almost pulled it off. Yeah, you leave my tail alone, said the other dogs. Chief goes, oh, stop fighting. Tails are getting in the way. Okay, he said. I used to do this when I was a puppy. I used to just lay around, watch my parents go out and do their chores. Sometimes I would just lay under a tree and I would mess around with stuff. But one time I reached behind on my back and I decided to mess around with my tail a little bit. So I twisted it and I took my tail off. But there was no blood. And I checked and there was no blood. So before they could see me, I put it back on. And to be sure it still worked, I wagged my tail and it still worked. So just to do it again, I took my tail off. You see? Look, I just did it. And all the dogs go, he took his tail off. Look, the chief is holding his tail. And the chief goes, see, it can still wag too. He said, I'm kidding. He said, so he puts his tail back on. He says, watch. And he wagged his tail. It still works. He didn't break it. Now, the chief said, you see what I can do. You do the same thing too. I don't want to do that, said some of the dogs. No, as your chief, I say do it now. 1, everybody, on the count of 4, you reach behind him. Twist your tail off, okay? 1, 2, 3. Oh, the tails were being held. Long, heavy, black, brown, white tails, furry ones, real shiny, long tails, squiggly ones, bushy ones, spotted ones. Now, he said, you see that rope that runs around the inside of the lodge? You hang those tails on that rope. Everybody, go hang your tails on that rope now. Pretty soon, the rope was squeaking from heavy, heavy tails all hung on the rope. Now, he said, everybody, let's dance now. No more tails in the way. Singers sing, drummers drum. Rattle players, sing now. And the dogs start dancing again, faster and faster and faster. But pretty soon, you could hear something outside. The dogs stopped a little bit. I think I heard thunder. And then the chief says, it's far away. We have 4 more songs to finish. Shook the building. Hurry, singers, sing some more. Dancers, we have to complete the ceremony. Hurry up, sing, he said, before the rain comes. And they were dancing and dancing fast. But pretty soon, lightning flashed inside. Chief barely kept control. Keep dancing. 1 more dance to do. 1 more, he said. Rain started pouring on the lodge. Lightning was outside. And then finally, lightning struck the top of the building. All the dogs, They ran looking for whatever tail they could, and another lightning hit. Out of fear and fright, they grabbed the closest tail to them, stuck it on their behinds, and they ran out back to their lodges, carrying their instruments back with them, and they went into their lodges. They closed their windows and everything, brought their pots and pans in, and they settled for the evening to the beautiful sound of rain on their lodges. They slept so good all night until the next morning. The first dog woke up. Big, muscular dog, shiny, short-haired black dog. He comes out of his lodge, rubs his eyes, looks around. He sees his little friend. His little friend is trying to drag something. His little white spotted little friend, brown spots. He goes, "What's wrong?" he said. "What's wrong, little brother? Are you trying to drag something? Something's real heavy on my back," he said. The dog ran over there, the big black muscular one. He started laughing. He said, "Little brother, where's your little squiggly white tail with the brown spots? You have a big black shaggy tail on there. It's twice as long as your body. Where did you get that?" "I don't know. I think I mixed up my tail with somebody last night after the rain." And somebody else was over there, trotting over there, and over there another dog with a different coat, but a different colored tail. And then the big dog goes, "Oh, that dog over there has a handsome tail. Muscular, thick, strong, shiny, short-haired, black." "Hey, you stop right there," he said. "Stop." Other dog, the gray dog goes, "Oh, don't hurt me," he says. "Stay still. I need to check something. Stand still." So that black dog did what dogs do to this very day. Just to be sure it was his tail, he trotted behind that scared gray dog, and right where the tail goes into the rear end of that dog, he took a big whiff and he smelled it again and again. "It smells just like my tail. I knew it. It's my tail. Give it to me." He took it off. He threw his tail off, and the gray-haired dog goes, "Oh, hey, you had my tail. That's a gray tail." And so they exchanged tails. Pretty soon, all the other dogs in the village saw what happened. And then they all started looking at one another. And before you knew it, the whole village of dogs in the central courtyard, they all started sniffing one another's rear behind. They started smelling one another until finally they located their own tails, and they exchanged tails to the rightful owners. To this day, all of the descendants of those dogs in that village high up in the mountains, they are being walked along sidewalks, on streets. Some are being walked in city parks. Some are res dogs that run along the different reses. But when one dog sees another dog, right away they stop and they check and see one another. They go, "I wonder if that dog has my tail. Just to be sure, I'd better check." That's why to this very day, when one dog sees another dog, right away they're sniffing one another's rear end. You see, even to this very day, dogs are still worried that that other dog might be carrying their tail from that mix-up from long ago. Why dogs sniff one another's rear end. Thank you very much.
What a wonderful and fun story. It's such a balance. Thank you so much again, Duncan, for sharing with us the wisdom and the stories that bring balance, humor, and some practical elements of life. Ashe, Modupwe, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And now we are so excited to reopen up again and invite Choogie, who has one more story to tell. You're on.
We post as I was sitting here listening to Ken and his dog story, I've got one of my own very similar. I'll save that for another time. Maybe you guys can invite me back and we can share even more stories. But I appreciate this opportunity, and I want to say thank you to the committee for allowing me to be a part of it. And I'm just overwhelmed with so much, and to be able to be a part of a function like this. And slowly, I'm working my way out west. I've been doing this for 30 some odd years and covered the East Coast pretty good. And now I need to work on that West Coast now. But I'll get there eventually. This story right here, as I was thinking, uh, there's so much that as we begin to explore that connects us all together. And this is one such story. It's called Stone Soup. A long time ago, when this earth was new, there were only animals here, and soon the humans came. And in this village, there lived 7 boys. Now, these 7 boys, they weren't brothers, but they were brothers. You see, they grew up together. They knew each other's fears and they knew each other's likes. And they were always running around all over the countryside. And every time it was time to go to work, they would disappear. One day, the mothers got so upset with them, and they went to the elders and asked the elders, what do we need to do with these boys? They don't want to work. They don't want to do anything. They just want to play. And so the elders said, feed them. Feed them. The mothers didn't know exactly what the elders were trying to say, and so they sat back and they thought about it a few moments, and soon they came up with stone soup. They boiled it all day. They even put some little bit of flavoring in it so the boys would be enticed. And sure enough, as the sun was going down, in rushed the boys, as hungry as ever, as they begin to grab their bowls and their spoons, begin to dip into that soup. And as they begin to eat, they saw what they were eating, and there was a look of disgust. There was one young man among those 7 that he seemed to be the leader of them. And everything that he did, it seemed that the other 6 would follow suit. And the leader got up and he looked at it and he said, why did you feed us stone soup? The mother said, because you don't help. Because you don't do what you're supposed to do. You're just out playing. So the leader grabbed the bowl and he flung it to the side, and the other 6 done the same. They ran out the door and the mothers tried to catch them. And as they watched, the young men ran out onto the plaza around that sacred fire where there's supposed to be a sacredness, no hatred, no anger, no sadness. But you go out there with the good heart and you pray for others. The young boys went out there around that fire and they began to dance. And because of the feelings in their hearts, because of the feelings in their minds, that fire began to rise up and it began to call to those boys. And those boys, they began to rise up with that fire. The mothers pleaded with the boys to come down. And as the boys would dance by, the mothers would reach up and try to grab hold of one of their sons. They called for the chiefs. They called for the medicine people. They called for anyone that could come and help. And every time the boys would make a circle around that fire, they would rise higher and higher. One boy was so high that when the mother jumped up, she was able to grab a hold of his ankle. And she pulled him down, and she pulled him down with such force that he went into the ground and disappeared. And there the mother sat, crying, her tears watering the earth where the young boy disappeared to. The other 6 continued to dance faster and faster as they began to rise up into the sky and disappeared into the heavens. Today, you can see those 6 boys still dancing. The Pleiades, the Big Dipper, They're up there dancing. They're up there defying. And they said, one of these days, when this earth stands still, then those boys will come back to earth. You might ask what happened to the boy that went into the ground. The mother sat there and she cried and she watered that place, and a small green shoot began to grow up. And that tree began to grow straight and tall, as if it was reaching to the stars. It was that young boy wanting to be there with his brothers. If there's ever any doubt that the two aren't connected, the next time you burn a pine log, be very careful and watch, because as the flame begins to lick that wood, the sparks will begin to fly. And if you look very closely at those sparks as they fly out, they are in the shape of stars, telling us that the Pleiades and the pine tree are one and the same. At least that's the way it was told to me. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Wow. Wow. What a beautiful message. And what a powerful time for us to hear it. Thank you so much, Choogie, for your
Choogie.
Choogie. Sorry.
There you go.
Choogie. Whew, I was hoping I would get it right, but there we go. Choogie, thank you so much for the beauty of your story and the message that is very appropriate in these times. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I want to thank both of our tellers for Stu and Story. Stu and Story has something that we have always brought to the community every year at South Mountain Community College. We want to thank, of course, all Maricopa Community Colleges and all of the support that has been given to us to continue to hold these stories. We may not be having Stu physically right now, but I believe the stories that we heard filled our hearts and filled our souls, reminded us of tradition, reminded us of hope. And with that being said, thank you so much. We trust that next year we will continue to bring Stu and Stories to you. And with that, I, Marilyn, Omifunke Torres, faculty of the Storytelling Institute, thank my colleague Liz Warren as the director, thank my colleague Travis May, thank all of the individuals who brought us here to tell this story. It was indeed an opportunity and a great blessing. We want to thank, of course, also all of the individuals that organized what brought us here today. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And we'll be back next year. Bye. Peace and blessings.